Hey, Joe Gilder here from HomeStudioCorner.com. Let me show you how 3 different ways to do parallel processing in PreSonus Studio One. That was a little alliteration there. If you've used other systems and you're used to doing parallel processing a certain way, it's a little different here and it might feel a little disconcerting, but it's actually fine, and I've actually gotten very used to doing it this way. So real quickly, what is parallel processing? Parallel processing is the idea of taking 2 identical signals and sending them through different processing in order to combine them back together to get something you couldn't get otherwise. A great example of this, and I'm going to show you this right now, is something related to drums. So I've got drums here. There's a lot going on, and let's say we want to do some compression on there, but we've played around with the compressor, and as much as we like some of the things that it's doing, we feel like it's killing the life of the drums. If we get a lot of snap and punch, we're losing some of the, if we get a lot of snap and clarity, we lose punch, or if we get a lot of sustain out of the resonance of the drums, we lose some of the snap, and we're just not happy with it. We know we want some of the benefits of compression, but we don't want all the baggage that comes with it. That's an example where parallel processing would work, where we essentially process these drums twice through 2 channels, one of them having the compressor on it and one of them not, or having different amounts of compression on each channel. There's different ways to do it. So the ways to set up parallel processing here, and the way that I tend to do it, goes like this. So I'll create a bus with a compressor. So I showed in just a previous video how to drag an effect onto a send section, and it will create a bus or an effects send with that particular effect. So here I'm dragging the compressor onto my drum bus in the send section. Okay? Boom, it has now created this channel here. So we'll call this something like drums 2, not at. This isn't Twitter 2. And so now I've got this bus feeding a copy over to this one. Okay, so one thing I'd want to do is use a pre-fader send. So I'm sending an exact copy set at 0 dB over to this fader, and now I can adjust them individually. Okay, if I want to heavily compress this, bring the threshold way down, super high attack or super high ratio, quick attack, quick release, I may end up liking the sound that I get, and it'll sound like this. So then after I do that, I might want to say, you know what, I don't need any of that low end. I just want kind of the upper half of that. So I'll bring in an EQ and just get out kind of the muddy parts of it. Way over compressed, but what happens when I blend that in with the original drum sound? I don't know if it's right or wrong for this particular mix, but it's different and it's interesting. So that's the easiest way to set up parallel processing. Now, if you know about buses and sends and things like that, you know there are a couple of downsides to this method. One of them being this send, I believe, is getting a copy of everything as it's run through whatever plugins are already there. So if you wanted to just send the drums without any plugins on there, you can't do it this way. To prove that, I'll get this EQ and crank up the gain, and let's see if it affected the levels going. Yeah, so you can see these are at exactly the same level. I took the EQ on the first track, turned it all the way up and all the way down, and you can see this pre-fader send is coming after the plugins. So this EQ'd sound is going to my bus over here, my parallel bus. Now, I personally don't mind, and most of the time I want that. This EQ is doing some corrective stuff, it's fixing a few things, and then I'm going to send it over here. But there are cases where you may not want that to happen, and if that's the case, you have to kind of think of a different way to do this. So one of the things is to simply have all your drums going through one bus, and then route that bus to another bus. So let's see, let's for example, let me take all my drums here. I showed you how to create buses in the last video. Add a bus for selected tracks, and we'll call this, actually I'm just thinking of this now in this video. I've not done this before, but it sounds like a great idea. Call this raw drums, okay? So we've got all the drum tracks going to a raw drums bus, okay? So now the raw drums bus right now is feeding my main outputs. But what I want to do is send the raw drums to have it go different places. So one way to do that, and this will seem kind of counterintuitive, is to bring the volume all the way down and to do a couple of pre-fader sends. So one's going to drums 1, and then another one is going to drums 2. I set them both to 0. I set them to pre-fader send, and now guess what? I have the same exact raw drums going through these channels without any of these plugins affecting the other. Okay? I don't know if that made sense, but if we take a listen now. Now we can do something like if we bring the, use an EQ to do something drastic here, it's only affecting this channel and not this one. So it takes an extra middleman step to set it up this way. And I was going to show you a couple other ways to do this in this video, but then I realized this is the way I would do it. So to review, all my drums, if I want to do a true parallel processing situation, all my drums, on something like this where there's lots of drum tracks, I'm not going to duplicate all these drums. I'll select them all, I'll send them to a raw drum bus. Okay, then I'll just turn the fader all the way down. I won't even listen to it. And then I'll do a pre-fader send that sends it to my main drums bus and to my parallel drums bus. And now those two are the ones that I'm listening to. Okay, those are going to my main output or my music bus or whatever that's going to be. And that's an easy way to do parallel processing on drums, which is really common. Now, for doing parallel processing on an individual track, for example, this one bass track, it gets a lot easier. I can just do a pre-fader send to another track, or I can literally come over here, click on the track, right-click it, and say duplicate track complete. And that literally creates a copy of the track. I can do whatever I want. So if that's an alternative for me, I usually do that. If it's a single track that I want to do some parallel processing on, I'll just duplicate it. If it's multiple tracks that I want to send through multiple buses, then that's where doing some of the stuff I just showed you makes sense. Okay? So I know this got a little more in-depth, but if you're used to mixing and routing and doing a lot of heavy bussing, it's cool to see that Studio One can do that. It's a little different way of thinking about it, but it works just as well and can get you just as good results. So thanks for watching this video. I'm Joe from homestudiocorner.com/PreSonus. See you in the next one.